Join us as we dive deep into the captivating story of Daniel Vanzzini, also known as Danny V, a seasoned tattoo artist who has dedicated 17 years of his life to the art of tattooing. Discover how his childhood passion for art led him on a transformative path, shifting his focus from the culinary world to the realm of tattoos. Welcome back to the Happiness on Tap podcast, and I am very excited about my guest. Danny's my guy. He's been my tattoo artist for 6 years and has graced my body with beautiful art that is specific to me. Thank you for joining us for Tattoos and Self-Care, a tale of healing and artistry with Danny V. Hello, Danny. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you today? Can you hear me?
I'm doing great. Thank you for
Okay.
having me and keeping me in mind to do this. Yeah.
I'm so happy to have you here, man.
I'm excited to be here.
So, Daniel, aka Danny, which is what I will call him throughout this video because all I've ever known, has been tattooing full time for 17 years. Art has been his passion since childhood, and his mother's unwavering support encouraged him to turn it into a career. Initially working in kitchens, particularly at the high-end resort Canyon Ranch in Tucson, he contemplated culinary school. However, an unexpected opportunity to learn tattooing led Danny to shift his focus from food to art. After completing his apprenticeship in Tucson, he moved to Albuquerque, where he's been for the past 15 years. Starting at Rival Tattoo upon his arrival in Albuquerque, he spent just over a year there before joining 71 Tattoo for a remarkable 15-year tenure. Despite being relatively new to tattooing, Danny was fortunate to receive valuable guidance and honed both his skills and his artistic style. In recent years, he recognized the need to prioritize self-care. Driven by a passion and eagerness to learn tattooing had consumed him, taking a toll on both his physical and mental well-being. He stepped back, focusing on fitness, therapy, working with an energy healer and a coach. Though he still struggles to find the right balance between his tattooing career and personal life, he is now a much happier person. Over the last year, his life has undergone a major shift. He got married, became a parent, and opened his own tattoo shop, Tiger Wraith Tattoo. Danny looks forward to the journey ahead and is grateful for feeling much more prepared than he did 2 to 3 years ago. So let's get started, Danny. Can you share with us how your childhood passion for art led you to the world of tattooing?
Yeah. To be completely honest, I never even thought of tattooing as an option for me in life. Yeah, I've always been artistic, always as long as I could remember, doodling, drawing, painting, whatever. As you'd mentioned, my mother was always a big supporter of mine, always telling me I need to do something with art for a career, just because, it was a talent of mine, and she was like, why not use it? But never thought about tattooing for the longest time. And while I was in the culinary world, I'd met an individual who I became friends with, and his brother was a tattoo artist. And I started getting tattooed by him because I was always into tattoos. I wanted tattoos, but still never put two and two together. But luckily, through his guidance, he kind of got my foot in the door and kind of woke me up to the fact that like that is an option for me, and that I could like make a living doing art and also doing something that I just thought was really cool in general. And that kind of evolved to a lot more than with tattooing than just something that I thought was cool. But yeah, it was one of those things. I never strived for it. I was just very, very fortunate that it kind of just landed, you know just happened to me. And I've been grateful and very happy about that sense.
So what was the turning point that made you pursue it as a full-time career?
Once again, it was more of like kind of just the aesthetic of it, honestly. Even then, it didn't come, I feel like I didn't really mature into my tattooing until years later. But realistically, I just thought it was cool. At first, it was just like, um, I'd been kind of offered an opportunity at first. And I was like, no, that's not really kind of my thing. I just want to have tattoos. I don't know if I can do this. And but then as the more I hung out, with my buddy and he was tattooing me and I was at the shop and I saw the aesthetic of the shop and the people there. I was like, oh, this is really, really cool. I want to do this. So, at first it was just really just because I thought it was cool. And then it kind of dawned on me a little bit. I was like, well, I love art. I love drawing and stuff. I kind of had at that point not done it in a while because I was focusing more on the culinary thing. But that just really kind of, you know, brought all that back and really kind of brought the flame back into art and whatnot too. But yeah, I just thought it was super cool. And it wasn't until, years later where I really found that tattooing can be a lot more than just being cool. It can help people and you create a lot of relationships. And it's a very personal thing. So yeah, it took me a while to understand that part of it, but yeah, I just thought it was cool. So
Yeah, you're kind of like that therapist for a lot of people because you're in this time that's set and you're focused and you're chatting and you're distracting people or they're intrigued and want to know more. But things, you and I have had some long conversations
yeah.
with me on
Mhm.
your table, and I look forward to that time. It's fun for me. It's like time to catch up with you and see what's going on and see all the new art on your walls and just get to catch up. Um, but yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
a
no, that
way
is
that
that is the truth.
you can make a lot of impact because people, usually most people have a reason for wanting permanent ink on their body and have thought about it, and then you help make it come to life, from a picture or something you change or alter,
Yeah.
or it's beautiful and I love it. This, let's see, here we go. This one, I didn't get it. Was the first one you did for me.
That was, I remember that. Yes.
And that was me just walking in the shop saying, I want
Yes.
something that represents all the blessings in my life and how lucky I feel. And that's what you came up with. It wasn't something that was on the wall. It was like, okay, I got you.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that.
Oh, that means a lot to me. I love that. That's one of the big perks of being a tattoo artist, is impacting you know people's lives in different ways, and a lot of times for majority of the time for the better, and that's really something that I find really special with what I do. So
And something I love too about tattoos in general is that, times have changed and people aren't as covered up anymore. They're more widely accepted in the professional
sure.
world. And I'm seeing people now who are fully stepping into this beautiful art on their body that means so much to them and just being like, you know what, this is part of who I am. This is my skin,
Yeah,
and not
exactly.
allowing the world to continue to keep us hidden under clothes or
Yeah, no, that is very true. It's just a great way of expression, and it's wonderful to be a part of that, to once again to help someone express themselves and help them be how they feel true to themselves, and that's really cool.
and you have definitely done that on both of my legs. So how has the tattoo industry like evolved over the last 15 years? What have you seen?
Well, when I first got into tattooing, I feel like it was kind of at the tail end of a of like uh, an era of tattooing where it was very much still so like very kind of and not in a bad way, but it was very much so kind of still like a street shop kind of almost biker shop feel to it, like it was still a little intimidating for people to go in and talk to someone about a tattoo if they wanted it, real rough and gruff type people working there and whatnot. But over the last 15, 17 years, like watching it evolve has been really cool because now you have a wide variety of shops. You still have those type of shops, but you have people that have private shops. You have people that have more kind of like I don't know, just different vibes in shops. It's just not one particular vibe. And also they make their space a lot. A lot of shops cater to make their space feel a lot more safe and more just inviting for people, so people aren't so intimidated to get tattooed. And
Mhm.
also and so that in itself has been really cool to see that kind of change to kind of cater towards like people getting tattooed, and I feel that's why a lot more people nowadays have tattoos, where at one point they never thought about getting tattooed because maybe tattoos were associated with a certain group or demographic of people, but now like tattoos, they've always been for everyone, but now it truly feels that tattoos are for everyone. So seeing that kind of evolve into that state where like people can be comfortable with getting tattooed is really cool, I think. So
Absolutely, and I love it. What about women in the field? I love seeing more and more women in tattoo shops
yeah,
or
no, that is the truth. Yeah, and I think it's great as well to to have more women. I mean, There's so many women tattooers who are phenomenal, and honestly, like a lot of like sometimes I feel like a lot of times women have this like certain aesthetic and certain look to tattooing that I find very personally I find very cool, and I wish I could do it. I just don't. It's just not my style. Just like I have my own style and whatnot. But it's really really cool, and I really think it's awesome that like women now are kind of just becoming more part of the tattoo industry, where it was once a more male dominated industry. It's really it's really cool to see that kind of evolve as well. So
yeah, yeah, I agree. So you spent over a decade at 71 Tattoo, which is remarkable, I think, in the industry. What made your tenure there so special, and how did it contribute to your growth as an artist?
I just really found myself there, honestly. It was, up until that point, I had a very short apprenticeship in Tucson. It wasn't the most thorough apprenticeship. And then once I moved to Albuquerque, I was kind of starting all over again. So I was really still just trying to find myself, not as a tattoo artist, but also just figure out like how to tattoo, like the trade part of it, just understanding my equipment, my machines and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until I moved, went to 71 that I got a lot more guidance from, the owner there, but also just a lot of the people that I worked with over the years. I've worked with a lot of different people, and they've all been very, welcoming in terms of like showing me like some of the, I guess, like secrets of the trade, you would say, but yeah, so I mean, I just really kind of learned that aspect of it. And then so once I learned the technical part of it, then as time went on there, I was able to really start to find myself artistically in what kind of brought like what styles and whatnot that would really you know I would gravitate towards, and I would like kind of just be a little bit more effortless. I didn't have to try so hard with it, and just really, once again, just find myself. So it was
Hmm.
just a really good experience. But that, it was just the people that I worked with that really kind of helped me do that, and I'll always be thankful for them.
And that's awesome. I mean, mentors are so important for, any entrepreneur, for somebody just getting started in a new career. I mean, if you can be surrounded by those type of people that will help show you the way or help save you time and stress, I mean,
Yeah,
they're worth every ounce.
I agree.
I do want to touch on one part of that, like entrepreneur journey, something that I don't know. Um, with regards to like pricing. So, like for me as a woman coming into opening my own business, changing my career field from, accounting to then legal to now I'm a health and life coach. Um, I went from the corporate world of capping myself with how much money I could make. Like when I left
Sure,
the legal field, I was making the most money I had ever made, and I was making good money. But it took me a lifetime to get there.
sure,
It took me going to college in my 30s. It took me working in different places. But every time I'd interview somewhere, I would cap myself and say, well, I have to make $5,000 more than I was making at my last job. And
sure,
I let myself cap myself. I wasn't even going in, giving them an
sure,
opportunity to offer me a certain amount. I was like, this is what I felt I deserved for my skills, for my effort. But then you go into being an entrepreneur and you have to then consider, like, how do I price my services? What's a fair amount? What's a good
of
amount?
course,
We go through imposter syndrome, like who's going to pay me to be a health and life coach when they know me from the legal field, or
of course,
so pricing is really difficult. Plus, for me as a woman, we struggle with value. I'm not saying men don't, but I know for myself,
of course.
we struggle with being able to value ourselves. How is it in the tattoo industry? Is there like an industry standard hourly plus your value? I mean, I don't know. That's why I'm asking the question.
Of course. So yeah, as time goes on, there's generally kind of like a standard hourly that kind of evolves, I guess, with inflation and time. When I first started getting into tattooing, like the hourly, was like around $100 an hour. Nowadays, it's anywhere between 150 to maybe 250 an hour, just depending on the person to person, the tattoo artist and what they feel um, is worth their time, I guess, And so, I mean, there is, but typically, me personally, I don't really go strictly hourly unless I'm doing like larger projects like sleeves, back pieces, stuff like that, where, you're going 4 or 5 hours at a time for sessions, like multiple times. What I, it's, pricing has always been something that I struggle with, just because it's hard to price tattoos. At least it has been for me all the time, because I've always wanted to be fair to my clients. I realize that tattoos cost a lot of money, and I feel that like money in the tattoo world is a lot different than money in the corporate world per se. For a tattoo artist, maybe a couple $100 is really not a lot. But for a lot of people who are making, say a minimum wage job or even a little bit more, that's a lot of their money. That's a big chunk of their weekly or even biweekly check. So I've always struggled with kind of getting what I felt was fair for me to not, kind of take away from my talents and my time, but also to be fair to the client, where like it's, they don't have to, take a loan out to get a tattoo, or they can get a tattoo with a budget that, is comfortable for them. And so, and there's ways to go around that. Like a lot of times the clients want bigger tattoos. We can, they don't have the money up front. Yeah, we can break it up into a couple sessions so that makes it more financially, feasible for them and whatnot. But yeah, that's just always been something that I've always struggled with. But I try to meet somewhere in, I guess just kind of in the middle there. Like I'm not trying to, you know, you know, sell myself short, but I'm also not trying to take advantage of people financially because I know people will pay it. I mean, we're in the day and age where you know, people be willing, you know, are willing to spend a lot of money for a tattoo without any, you know, without batting an eye. But just because someone is willing to pay that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what that tattoo is worth. So I try to be fair with my clients and whatnot in that sense, and try to do something that is, you know, the best for the two of us. But that's always been something that I've struggled with. There are times I've sold myself short on tattoos a lot, where like a tattoo took me way longer than I anticipated from what I quoted. And then there's times when I've got, you know, I've overquoted a tattoo. And then, you know, but at the end of the session, I'll always try to price as fair as possible. So if I overquote, then I'll bring that price down. Just because I quoted that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to charge that. But I mean, it's hard. It's hard to find that, you know, and there's a lot of tattooers that make it a lot easier and they just go strictly hourly. But I mean, sometimes, you know, a tattoo that may take me a couple hours to do isn't necessarily, you know, worth a couple hours worth of pay. Like if I'm, you know, if it's $200 an hour, you know, the tattoo that I may do may not, it may not be worth a 400, you know, the $400 that my hourly is demanding. But I mean, you know, I also tend to find that when I'm tattooing, I'm not just trying to sit down and tattoo someone, get them in and out. I like to get to know the people that I'm tattooing and stuff. So sometimes, even though I'm tattooing for 2 hours to do you know, it takes me 2 hours to do a tattoo. The tattoo may have just taken an hour, but you know, with I like to talk a lot with my clients, so that takes a big chunk of time. So I don't add that time into the equation, you know, as far as price goes. So, but yeah, it's a struggle, you know. It always has been, and always will be for me at least. But you know, I just try to be as I try to keep in mind that, you know, tattoos are expensive, but I just, you know, want to make it affordable for everyone, you know, and do give them the best quality that I can give them as well. So
Awesome. You know what? You kind of froze on my screen. I'm going to pause the recording and see if you
okay.
can't refresh your screen. You've been frozen for a little bit, but what you were saying was so important and so much value to everyone else. I didn't want to interrupt. So hang on, I'm going to
Okay.
pause. All right, we reset the video, so we're back up. And thank you, Danny, for sharing that information about valuing and pricing. I think it's something that, you know, all entrepreneurs really struggle with. You know,
Of
we
course.
compare ourselves to our corporate lives, and we don't know how to change into that new role. Um,
Mhm.
and even myself, I mean, it's something that I can coach people on, but I struggle with it personally. And I think it's just one of those
Sure.
things we all do what we can do. And but
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that, because I know too
Yeah, of
also,
course.
I've had, you know, brand new artists come and talk to me. In fact, some of the art that's up on my wall that I was showing you is a daughter of a girl that I went to high school with.
Oh,
And I had posted on my website that I was offering gallery wall space for new artists. And she reached out and she's like, hey, you know, can I send my daughter? She's a really good artist, but she doesn't know where to start.
oh,
And so I coordinated with my artist community, and some of them came and met with her to talk to her about how to price, how to, you know, name your art, how different places to set up, which places are better than others,
oh, that's
how to
so
get
cool.
involved in the local artist community, inviting her to art walks so that she could, you know,
Oh
see
wow.
what that was all about. And, you know, just in a year since all of that happened, because we did that last July when I moved into my space. Um, Now she was recently contracted to do 30 backdrops for next year's Nutcracker for Paramount. You
Oh
know,
wow,
so
that's really cool.
it warms my heart to have been just a small piece in that for her to expand her whole future with her art because
Oh
somebody
yeah.
took the time, was a mentor, sat down with her,
Yeah,
showed her how
exactly.
to, and we laugh when we get together because we'll switch out art on my walls, because now she's selling it. She paints it, it sells. She paints it, it
Oh wow.
sells. Um, and so when we get together, she'll be like, "Oh no, I forgot to name it." And I'm like, "Well, I'm waiting. This is, you got to do that. You got to have that connection." And sometimes it's the name that people notice as well as, the
Yeah,
picture
for sure.
itself. Um, because I like the name because then I get that connection to the artist
Of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
on a different level or deeper level. So can you tell us more about your journey, and how you embarked on prioritizing your physical and mental well-being? And how did fitness and therapy and working with an energy healer and coach, really played the role in your transformation?
Yeah. So, being a tattoo artist, physically, it takes a toll on you. You're sitting for 6 8 hours maybe plus a day. A lot of times if you're not meal prepping or preparing lunch or whatever, like you'll have 15 20 minutes in between the tattoo. You just run across the street, grab a burger or something, slam it down, get back to work. So as time went on, I kind of neglected myself physically, and it started, not only like as far as like putting on weight, I just, started feeling just kind of sluggish and bad and stuff as time went on. So, I actually started doing a lot of like kind of circuit training with one of the guys that used to get tattooed by the owner there at 71 Tattoo. And, he really helped me a lot in that sense. And I was feeling really good. And when I lost a lot of weight, feeling better about myself, mentally, but also physically. But as time went on, like I just kind of, I still had like a kind of like a funk that I was in. I couldn't put my finger on it and whatnot. And before that, like as time, with time, like I was always open with therapy, and I wouldn't do it consistently, but I'd talk to someone whenever I felt like I needed to talk to someone. So I was never like shut off to having any kind of therapy work or anything like that. But I just was never consistent with it. And as time went on, when I met my wife, she was doing a lot of yoga and stuff. So she had always like, oh, you should try doing yoga. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe one of these days, I don't know why I was so opposed to it. No reason in particular. I think just mainly it was something new and I wasn't ready to approach that yet. But I started doing that, started going to yoga, and that was just a next level of like not only getting like the physical part that I needed out of it, but also I didn't realize how like mentally, like how good it was for my mental health as well. Like it was just really really refreshing and really cool, and I became really really just hooked on it. And there was one individual instructor, her name is Felicia Evans, and I really love her. She was just great. But my wife had started doing some therapy with her, some healing therapy and stuff like that. And so she had recommended talking to her. And so then I started going to her, and she just kind of opened my eyes to a lot of stuff. I was at that point too, I was already getting into a lot of like just looking, reading a lot on like Buddhism and stuff like that, and trying to get a different perspective on things in the world and how to like, just I don't know. I was just looking for just ways to try to help me out, and she just really kind of pushed that a little bit more, for me, and kind of brought it to the next level. I started seeing her kind of on a bi-weekly basis, and she really helped me through a lot of stuff, and a lot of stuff that I didn't really know, like realize that was going on. Not having that awareness, where I was like, doing a lot of self-sabotaging, and a lot of like, and also just a lot of like people pleasing, where I was putting myself second and putting everyone else in the world first, and just stuff like that, where I didn't realize it was going on. And so then once I was like aware of it, then we kind of dived a little bit deeper into like, why am I like this, you know? And so through her help and then through my own reflection and my own work, it really just helped me out a lot. You know, I've been, you know, and I can't say that like, you know, that I'm perfect in my routines and whatnot, but you know, I'm still learning in that sense as well. Where like I'm not hard on myself if I fall off, you know, my like kind of consistency with it and whatnot. Where before, like I'd be really, really good on everything. And then all of a sudden I'd have this like slump of like a week or two where I wasn't doing anything and I'd get really hard on myself. So, you know, I just give myself a lot of grace and understanding and just know that at the end of the day, I'm a human being and, you know, like I'll never, you know, the idea of perfection is just an illusion, but like I just have to take it day by day. And so I've been doing that. And since then, you know, it has raised my self-esteem a lot. It has raised like it helped me prioritize myself, which was great because you know, like I was, you know, I was surrounded at that point. I'm surrounding myself with people who are true to me and not just trying to find validation and acceptance from anyone and you know that would give it to me just through, you know, people pleasing. And while it's been a very difficult journey, it's also been a very like rewarding and beautiful journey. And you know, I look forward to continuing with it, even if it is hard. You know, like there's been plenty of times when emotionally, like I'm just drained and I'm just, you know, just gone through a lot, you know. And but you know, that's it, you know, it just leads to, you know, just me being a better person. And so at the end of the day, it just really, it's been a great experience. So and then, so yeah, it's been really cool.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love hearing that from a man, you know, that found that peace, that found that level of self-awareness. Because honestly, I didn't find that either until I was in my 50s and hit a brick wall when I was so overwhelmed that I wasn't even functioning, you
Yeah.
know. So I luckily was in a position where I quit my job in the legal field, left the legal career permanently, had the ability to stay home and take time to heal. And I was realizing that I was healing from things that happened 20 years plus prior
Exactly.
that I had never addressed, that I had
Mhm.
never healed. I had never went to counseling. I'd never had a therapist. I just always trudged through life. But now I was in a position where I had the time to just step back and try different things because I couldn't understand why I just felt so bad and I knew I didn't like it. I knew I didn't like the darkness, that wasn't me who I was normally. And so I needed to find things that brought me back to my light.
Of course.
And I had been doing yoga for probably 2 to 3 years prior. But for me at that time, yoga was a flexibility thing. Like I was improving my flexibility, I was improving my ankle strength, I was also lifting weights. So it was more for that purpose. And I wasn't seeing the mental health side of it as a benefit or even on the radar. Like I would go to a
Sure.
yoga class and do yoga, and my mind was like, okay, breathe deeper, bend farther. You know, it wasn't a meditative state for me. It was go to a
Sure.
class, and then it became cool because then it was like pints and planks. So you could go to like Tractor Brewing and do yoga and then be
Sure.
in
Yeah.
community with other yogis just chilling over a beer and having a good time. Um,
Yeah.
and so when I hit the wall, I started meditating. And I had never, ever tried meditation before. And I started from ground zero and learned through watching videos on YouTube, like how to meditate, like where to start, how to quiet your mind, how to breathe, how to,
Yeah.
you know, and I developed over time a daily meditative practice. but like you, and I'm not perfect. There's days I don't. There's days I choose to sit and listen to a podcast or, you know,
Sure.
do something else and I don't get my meditation in. And it is having grace, with yourself and not beating yourself up like, I missed this. I know I need this. But I've
Of
learned
course.
that meditation comes in many forms,
It
you know.
does. Yeah.
So it's accepting the big picture, but at the same time, I started seeing a therapist. It wasn't a weekly thing or a monthly thing, or, although I should and I could because it is an option. Um, my therapist was there when I needed her to be there. But at the same time, I was already in this phase of doing the work. So she was okay with that. She's like, just check in, shoot me a message, an email, let me know,
Yeah.
if you need me, if you're doing all right, we're good. Um, so that was nice because I knew then that I had that support if I needed it. But at the same time, I was meeting all these other healers. I was finding
Yeah.
alternatives that were outside of a doctor. And plus, that's where I started was I went to my doctor and said, I need a referral, thinking I needed a referral to go to a therapist, and asked for a recommendation and was handed a prescription of
Oh, yeah.
antidepressant. And I was like, okay, you're not listening. This is not
Sure.
what I need. I just need a referral, a personal recommendation, or a direction. Um, and then I got lucky and went to a health fair through APS, which is who my husband works for. And this therapy practice that's literally walking distance from my house had a table set up. And I was
Oh,
like, oh, wow, you're the place. It's right next to my house. And it was amazing. And that opened that door. But then I was still struggling with, the medical side of it and
sure.
wanting to find other alternatives to heal my physical body and my mental health. And so I started working with sound healers, energy healers. Hypnotherapy has been my number one. Love it, love it, love it.
Oh,
Has
okay.
helped me with deeper levels,
Sure.
like for me, things like forgiveness and letting go and
Yeah.
setting boundaries were things that I had never broached in my life that I needed help with. And I
Yeah.
needed a safe space to go deeper into my meditative state, to really work on those deep level things, childhood stuff and
Yeah. Yeah.
and all
Well, and I think that,
those.
yeah, I think that's the biggest part is just having that space that you feel safe and you're comfortable with to be able to get to those levels of it, and with traditional therapy, I'm not, knocking it or saying it just wasn't necessarily for me. I could never get to those states where I could feel vulnerable enough to really get down to where I needed to be. And then once I met Felicia, that's really where I felt safe and I could really kind of start my healing just because I could get to those a lot of those childhood things. And honestly, kind of touching base what you said, as a man, or a male, I was always taught through my, father and whatnot that you always stay tough and this and that. And I, realistically, I've seen my dad cry or even shed a tear maybe less than 5 times in my whole life, and so just through that, I was always like, well, I'm not supposed to be vulnerable. I'm not supposed to be emotional and stuff like that. And that's just complete, nonsense. We're all human beings. We all have emotions and whatnot. And so she was able to get me to that point where I could accept it's okay to be, vulnerable. It's okay to show your emotions and so that's when the real kind of working through my stuff had really kind of taken its, in place, started going in place, but and that was because I one, like you said, a safe space, and I felt safe there, and I could be myself, so it was wonderful.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people to know too that there are other options as well, or
Yeah.
that maybe you have a therapist, but you still haven't connected on that level, like really
Yeah.
been your most vulnerable because of societal norms or, whatever.
Hmm.
And that is part of the reason that my coaching practice developed into my niche for helping people and coaching people who are in the kink and BDSM community, is because that's just another level of shame that people carry
Yeah.
that they don't even share with their therapist, or they don't share with a
Of
doctor,
course.
because they're still living in shame and judgment, and
Yeah.
and then not, those type of people aren't always available. I know that when I started seeing my therapist, that was literally one of the first things I told her, because I felt like I was in that safe space with her. We had already made that bond. It was probably our second or third session, where I felt that I could, tell her that this was the lifestyle that me and my husband live, so that she may understand certain words that come out of my mouth, or, I may show up with a wonky bruise that may cause question for
Sure.
some people. And even though personally she didn't have knowledge, education, or experience of dealing with somebody in the lifestyle, she was open enough to be curious and to work with me to learn herself and to understand me as a person,
That's awesome.
because she could see through our conversations my passion about it and who I was, and that I wanted to share that information. And she was open to hold that space for me. And so, then a few months later, I started attending, I took a BDSM and mental health summit that was like 5 days.
Oh,
And
nice.
listening to not only the students, but to the presenters about those struggles that people still have.
Hmm.
People don't have someone to talk to. And so I determined at that point that this was where I wanted to go with my niche, is to just be another avenue for people who have been hiding certain things about themselves for a life.
Sure.
And even if it's a phone call and they only say it out loud one time, that's something that's released from them. They've said it,
Yeah, exactly.
so
Hmm.
yeah. And I always appreciated our conversations that I could have with you too on that.
Oh yeah.
You were
No, for
my
sure.
safe
If
space.
one thing that like I that means the world to me. I always that's the biggest thing is with tattooing since day one. That was something that I, beyond giving the best work possible tattoo wise, was always prioritizing my space for the people that I tattoo. I obviously I tattoo people of all walks of life. But I want everyone that kind of comes and hangs out with me for the 2-3 hours, that they feel safe and comfortable where they're at, and they can, just let their guard down and be themselves, and that means a lot to me. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So, okay, as an experienced tattoo artist, what kind of advice would you give to aspiring tattoo artists who are just starting their journey?
Well, the biggest advice I could give is patience. Getting into tattooing is nothing but patience. Um, it I feel it takes a while to really get rolling in tattooing, like through your apprenticeship. Sometimes, apprenticeship can take onwards up to a year or two before you're becoming a full-on tattoo artist. And then even from there, like sometimes, like it takes a little bit of time to start kind of becoming, like getting your clientele and really starting to be able to make a living for yourself. So patience is key. Sometimes it feels like you're not getting anywhere, or this is a dead end. But it does become, a very valuable thing, and it does blossom as time goes on, but you just got to give it some time. And then also, during your, during an apprenticeship, whatever is asked of you, no matter how crazy or mundane or even just wild it may seem, like just do what's asked of you. In a weird way, it's one of those things where like as an apprentice, you don't understand how that applies to tattooing, but at some point down the road it will all make sense. And that's all I can say as far as that goes, because there's been plenty of times I'm like, I was asked to do certain things or this or that, and I just didn't even know why. I just did it. Luckily, I was open-minded enough to be like, all right, not, hard head. Like, well, I'm not going to do that. That's nonsense or this or that. What's that got to do with tattooing? But everything is done for a reason. Just do it, and you'll understand as time goes on why you're doing that, and it will benefit you. So those are probably the two main things that I would say. Just stick with it and just do what you're asked to do. With reason, obviously. I think we're past the days and times of apprenticeship where there's like extreme hazing and the tattooer is asking him to do some criminal almost stuff, but I mean, like, within reason. But most of the stuff nowadays, if it's beneficial, the more than it is like malicious, you know what I mean? So
And I think those are both wonderful, bits of advice for people. And I think it goes in so many different directions for anybody who, I mean, even for young kids starting, their first job, not coming into it with a chip on their shoulder or thinking, I don't have to do those things. That's, you know, I'm not going to clean the bathrooms. I'm not going to mop the floors. But if you, are open-minded, like you said, and you accept those things, like them or not, for what they are, eventually you see, why they happened, why they needed to happen, things like that. I mean,
yeah,
it goes to pride. Have pride in what
it
you do,
does.
have pride in where you work. Just because somebody else may not have pride in what they do and where they work, you are your own person and your own example to the people who come in and order from you, or whatever the case may be. Have pride in what you do.
Yeah,
um
100%.
See now, like, as a business owner, like, it's different from, this is my space in my room in a shop, to now this is all my space.
Yeah,
you know
100%.
and those things that you learned over the years from having good mentors will stick with you now, and you're like, oh, okay, this makes
Exactly.
sense.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And then I think that's just life in general too. Like, a lot of times things in life don't make sense, but eventually they do, there's reason for it. And just like you said, to put pride in what you do and keep trucking along, and be open-minded, and things will work out, so.
Absolutely. So how have you witnessed the impact of tattoos on individuals over your career?
Like, as far as like my clientele or people that I tattoo, uh, I mean, I've noticed from, early on, it took me a little while to notice, but it impacts people quite a bit. Like I said, I got into tattooing, so I thought tattoos were cool, but there's a lot more to tattooing, and that tattoos can be they can be very healing, and they impact people's lives significantly. People get tattooed for multiple reasons, whether it be to memorialize an event or a person that was in their life, to gaining closure to a part of their life. It can be any reason, or it could be just because they think it's cool too, and it just makes them feel cool. Therefore, it kind of makes them a little more confident in their life. So I mean, it's impactful in a lot of different ways. And as the time has gone on, and I've done so many tattoos over 17 years, I've seen a lot of I've had a lot of clients that have the intention, it was nice to have a thank you for helping them with a certain things, but I've never expected that. But it was just really heartwarming to have that, because I have helped a lot of people in their life and impacted their lives in a lot of ways, and it's been a very beautiful thing. But yeah, tattoos, there's no, there's no one reason or way to get tattooed. It's just very specific for each individual, and it definitely impacts their lives. And also, I'm a firm believer too that like what you tattoo on your body, not, can also, whether it be for positive or negative reasons, affect your life in those ways as well. Like tattoos are literally a part of you. And so, and I was listening to a podcast that had like a Japanese tattooer that kind of went into there, and it kind of like solidified how I felt about tattoos as well. Like I wasn't the only one, but you get a lot of like negative things tattooed on you. It's literally a part of you. You can, it's not necessarily going to happen to you, but I feel like you can, you'll attract a lot of negative things into your life. But you do a lot of things for positive reasons on your body, maybe you'll have a lot more positivity in your life as well. And that goes along with your actions and your thoughts and everything else as well. So it only makes sense that if you kind of permanently place something onto your body in that sense, that it would do that, bring that to you as well. So, and I'm a firm believer of that. So, but I've seen it impact people's lives in a lot of different ways. It's been very rewarding, honestly. So.
I love it. It made me, I was thinking about my daughter as you were talking about that, because I think she started getting tattoos probably 16, 17. Since I already had them, I was, open to her getting them. And then she went on her little adventure for a couple of years out in Arizona, at 18, thinking she knew it all and was going to experience life, and came home with, I think she has like a pistol, a pair of brass knuckles. She has an ex-girlfriend's lips. You see all these
Sure.
things, and now she's at that phase where she's getting them covered up, and now she's like got a whole sleeve of Buddha and just a different
Yeah,
phase in her
exactly.
life. But you see,
Sure. Of
like
course.
really, like you said, you see how those things impact the circle of people you surround yourself with. At that time, those were things and people she surrounded herself with, that gangy, thuggy lifestyle.
100%. Yeah.
Um, you know, Dating a car thief. It was part of her journey.
Sure. Of
And
course. Yeah.
now it's, a completely different phase in her life. And
Hmm.
watching that transformation on her skin is amazing. Like I may, disagree with what she had back in the day, but it wasn't my body, it was her body. And
Of
I knew
course. Yeah.
she would come to her own terms with things as time happened. Um, but yeah, I can
Yeah.
really see what you're saying. What you put on your body, you attract to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and I've been in that same boat as well, and, I've seen kind of how my tattoos have evolved over the last, 20 some odd years. And it's pretty interesting just to see the growth in myself as well. So to see it in others is pretty cool too.
Yeah. And I mentioned to you that I recently had a doctor's appointment, and my tattoos were topic of conversation
Yes.
during the doctor's appointment. Not the most appropriate time during that doctor's appointment, but it was interesting to see a gentleman older than me in a professional career in a white coat, and he's there to help me with things that I was there for, but he was infatuated. Like, tell me
Yeah.
more about this one. Tell me more about this one. And the nurse is standing in the corner. She's like, yeah, I was looking at those ones on your legs, and I'm like, explaining the
Yeah.
one was a custom piece that you did for me that was very specific to my lifestyle, and explaining what those things. And he was like, oh, now I get what you meant when you said you were in the lifestyle. Then it opened this door of conversation between me and a gynecologist, a male gynecologist.
Sure.
And so I have pride in what I have on my body, and
Sure.
I love it, and I thank you because you have a lot of ink on
Yeah.
me.
Well, thank you as well. And tattoos are wonderful like that. They definitely they kind of they intrigue other people, whether they want to have tattoos or not. A lot of people are interested, and it's a great way to start conversation or get to know someone else is just through tattoos and in general. So that's really cool.
So what are any more future aspirations or goals for you right now?
So right now, mainly it's just focusing on the new shop. My buddy Rabbit and I just opened up shop in October, and so it's fairly new. So right now, the goals, and kind of like the focus is to really get that established. But we really want to, once again, create like a safe space for the community, so a place that's comfortable for all people. But also, we want to try to be more embedded within the community as well, try to help out the way we, as much as we can in whatever way we can. So, right now it's just getting established. And then the next step would be just to, be kind of woven into the fabric of our community a little bit more and establish ourselves that way. The community itself really have supported us for the last decade plus, each one of us. And so, it only makes sense to kind of give back and help others, whether they've been tattooed by us or not, the people, people of Albuquerque has helped us. So we need to kind of give back as well. And I'm a firm believer too, kind of, what goes around comes around. So like they've always been supportive of us. We need to give back as well. So, that would be the next step. So really that's just the focus on those two things at the moment. And, as always, just trying to better myself as an artist, but also as a tattooer and my craft as well. That's always a big focus as well. That will never kind of die down. So, I mean, those are just kind of the things at the moment that I'm personally focused on as well. So,
That's awesome. And before we got started, I definitely threw it out there to you that, I'm here in any way to help support you and in celebrating the shop and getting it open and getting it out to the community, and all that stuff. Something that I set up with my business a couple months ago. I started what's called a positive impact community. So right now it's a private Facebook group, but it's all of these people who have impacted my life, like you have, that have made changes in me personally that I want to share with others, and have created kind of a referral partner community as well. So, if you have something coming up, you're doing, the grand opening of a shop or whatever you have coming up, I want to be involved in sharing that to bring people to you that are also like-minded people. They're all my artists, they're all my healers. So these are all people that are, meant to have you
sure.
involved, that would be happy to help support you and share and go and get tattooed, because that's my thing. I want, people, I always get somebody to say, hey man, I like that ink, where'd you get that done? Or who do you recommend?
Yeah.
Like I want to be able to do that. And then, I've also mentioned that over the last year and a half, I've had a couple of pop-up events that I've done here at my office. We did a big 4th of July one in our parking lot, which was a lot of fun.
Oh, super cool. Yeah.
And those are great ways that are fairly reasonable to, get out there and interact with the community.
Sure.
Um, so when you get there and when you're ready for that, and you have a nice parking lot that could use some activity on a Saturday and bring people into the shop, let me know.
I definitely will. Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. But yeah, we definitely will.
It's a lot of fun, and having a good supportive community is half the battle as a new
It is.
entrepreneur.
Yeah.
As
100%.
the right people will support you and hold you up. So those are the kind of people that I surround myself with, that are all willing to step in and support each other and offer advice, or just show up, come to their event, come and hang out
Yeah,
and talk to
exactly.
them for 20 minutes while they're standing in a
Hmm.
parking lot for 5 hours. It makes a difference.
Yeah. It really does. It really does.
Well, we're coming to the end. Danny, tell people where they can find you. And I'm also going to include all of this in the show notes so that people will be able to reach out to you when they're ready to schedule an appointment, the
Of
location of the
course.
shop, whatever you want to share.
Yeah. So the best way to kind of get a hold of me would be through my email, which is dvaninc01@gmail.com, or through a direct message on Instagram, which is Danny_V_tattoo. But you're also welcome to come through the shop, check out the shop, or talk to either me or my coworker in person. The shop's name is Tiger Wraith Tattoo. It's at 1307 Rio Grande Boulevard Northeast, Suite 8. It's a cool little place. I mean, like I said, even if you just want to come check out the vibe and the environment, that you're more than welcome to come on in. I feel like a lot of times when scheduling a tattoo, it's always nice and important just to get a feel for the environment before you schedule something. So, everyone's welcome to come in, but those are probably either through email or my Instagram. Those are the best ways to kind of get a hold of me as far as a tattoo goes.
Perfect. Perfect. I'll update my show notes to include the suite number because I didn't have that. So thank you for that. And
Yeah.
Danny, it was so awesome catching up with you, talking off camera before we got started, doing this, getting to know more about you, what got you here, the things you've learned, the wonderful transformations you made in your life, which are amazing. And to get to connect with you on those levels, mental health and physical health. And, I appreciate your vulnerability and sharing that information here in this place so that other people can see that they're not alone. We all have struggles, and it's nice to see that we are not alone. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, and thank you as well for, like I said, inviting me to do this. And I do agree that, like I have, I'm pretty open with talking about that kind of stuff once again, because if it helped me, I would only hope that it would maybe give someone the courage to take that step to try to do their own journey. And whether that happens or not, like the more I share, the more hopefully it can help others, and that's a great thing. So
Thank you. That's right where I am, and I appreciate that. So if you enjoyed this interview, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, Finding Resilience with Leanne. Subscribe to my Happiness on Tap podcast. Happiness on Tap is available on YouTube and Spotify or wherever you find your podcast. For more information about me, you can check me out on my website at Finding Resilience with Leanne. And be sure to subscribe to my email tribe to embark on a path of self-discovery, empowerment, and overcoming life's challenges. So again, thank you so much, Danny. I appreciate you. It was a pleasure catching up with you, and I look forward to coming and checking out the shop.
yeah, thank you so much. We'd be excited for you to check it out as well.